everyone, and welcome to another episode of Howl About It, the show where we celebrate the indie gaming scene and explore the heart and soul behind it. So for today, we're gonna have somebody who works behind the scenes in a lot of games I've actually speedran and streamed here on the show for Nightdive Studios. He's also a fellow Texan. He's the began as a Doom level designer. Worked for Timegate, who is responsible for like the Fear Perseus Mandate expansion. Also worked on Section 8 and a little game called Aliens Colonial Marines. Before he eventually joined Nightdive Studios. So everybody welcome in Samuel Villarreal, otherwise known as Kaiser. Hello, Kaiser.
Hey.
So I'm sure everyone here wants to know, before we get into the topic, how have things been with your recovery?
It's going along very well. We already got a lot of the damage repaired. The roof is pretty much fully replaced. So yeah, we did that just in time before the big freeze. Um so yeah, everything is going pretty well so far. There's still a lot of things to work on, but the roof was the big one, and I'm glad that that's already out of the way.
And I'm just, myself and a few of my people from my community definitely our thoughts were with you. Some of us even contribute to that GoFundMe to help get those repairs underway. But anyway, so just in case nobody knows who you are, why don't you give us just a very quick, brief overview what you do at Nightdive?
I'm the lead engine programmer at Nightdive. I'm responsible for um, basically designing our Kex engine framework. Responsible for a lot of what's going on under the hood. Um, I'm also responsible for a lot of the rendering backends for Vulkan, DirectX, and basically all of the other graphical um, interfaces for the consoles. So I'm pretty much like 90%. Well, not 90%, but like a good chunk of the work to that engine is pretty much done by me.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, I'm kind of like slowing down now since now we got more people. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
currently training others to start taking over some of my work, so that way I'm not like working 16 hours a day.
Yeah. Well, like with all my previous podcasts, in case anyone in the stream doesn't know how this works, I have 15 questions of my own, and then we will open it up to chat to ask your own, whatever you've got. Um, but yeah, to get started here, we get an easy one for you to get going. You have become quite the legend within the Doom community. You started as a level designer for it back in as far back as 1997, and you're also credited for hacks and edits of various Doom ports. And what I'm curious about is what initially inspired you to do this.
So I I was always fascinated by the science behind video games. While a lot of people just want to play it, I actually like studied it, the way it just works as a
Mm,
kid, and as when I was like going through like various strategy guides for video games and whatnot, I was very mesmerized by the way these levels were laid out. And
Mm-hmm.
I eventually started like drawing like Mega Man levels on paper just for fun, and I would also like draw mazes and a bunch of other stuff, and that was kind of what led me into the interest in level design. When looking at the auto map, for example, in Doom, just looking at the shape and the layout of these levels, they were just very mesmerizing for me. So being able to make levels for Doom was something that I've always wanted to do. At the time, my parents weren't able to afford a computer
Mm-hmm.
until way later when I was like right in the middle of high school.
Mm-hmm.
And once we did get a computer, the first thing that I wanted I wanted to do was look for a level editor to install. Yeah, to install and start making maps. Um, it took a while to find something, but I eventually came across a level editor called Deep Sea,
Mm-hmm.
and I just started hammering away at it, just learning the way the levels worked, and just learning learning everything as I go along. So yeah, that was the motivation behind the level design. As far as reverse engineering, I was very fascinated with how the console ports of Doom worked. PlayStation version, for example, was very different
Mm-hmm.
versus the other ports, and that was something I've been trying to figure out was, how do they work? How can I play the levels on PC? What is different? And it just turned into it just eventually became a rabbit hole that I just fell down on, and I just became obsessed with it. I wanted to figure out how everything worked.
Mm-hmm.
And this was like years on and off just trying to figure things out, and eventually I kind of did figure it out, the level formats, and I shared my findings on Doom World many years ago. I think it was like back in 2003, 2004, or
Mm-hmm.
somewhere around that time. But yeah, just curiosity, just knowing how they worked was what just got me going.
It's funny you say how you drew up your own maps because I did the very same thing as a kid when I was in school. I would draw up like even like Turok maps and Doom maps, and nothing really came out of it. So you definitely had the drive and motivation that I didn't. Um, so moving on there from the next to the next question, what is your design philosophy for making levels? What makes for good level design versus bad?
If you were to ask me that many years ago, I would probably given you some pretty bad answers. um, my philosophy back then was just make stuff and see it if it sticks. Nowadays, it's mostly keep like keep the gameplay. Um, Basically, you want the gameplay to keep your attention.
Mhm.
Meaning you don't want to drag things on for too long. You want to keep things um, very short and sweet, very quick and to the point of things. So now, like, well, for example, um, back in the day when I used to make maps, they were extremely long. They lasted for like 40 to 50 minutes, and really, that's just bad design because, it 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 eventually the novelty will start wearing off, and
Mhm.
you'll eventually just lose the interest of the player. So you wanna make sure that they're making progress. So keeping the levels short and sweet. Well, not super short, but keeping them within like the 12-minute um, playtime is enough to keep their attention and to ensure that they are making progress throughout the throughout the map sets.
Mhm. So you'd say pacing is the most important thing?
Yes, yeah,
Okay,
definitely.
and do you have any personal like, examples from other games of like good map making versus bad?
Actually, I would um, refer to Serious Sam. Their maps would drag on for
Oh yeah,
forever,
yeah.
and that was like the most annoying aspect of that was that the levels would just drag on for so long. You just don't know when it's just going to end. You get to the point to where you just want to get this over with so you can move on
Mhm.
to the next thing.
Yeah, and then especially with Serious Sam 4 when they started throwing so much narrative that really just to me made things worse because before you would have like what some codex entries you could read about which were interesting that would help a little bit with the pacing because it was just like nonstop action and you'd stop for a moment to read. But yeah, did that's definitely one I agree with there. um
Yeah, it's something a lot of um, a, a lot of more newer games, especially within between the 2005 and 2010 era, where the game was so tied to narrative that you have to go through a cutscene and then, or the game basically locks you in a room, and then you have to wait until the dialogue finishes, and then you can continue. And
mhm,
it just breaks up the tension and pacing of a level, especially if the game is meant to be action oriented, and it just makes it frustrating when you're in the middle of an action, you go on to the next area, but then you get stuck or you get locked into a room and you have to endure this minute or 2 minute long dialogue and then continue. And to me, that just it just really it just interrupts the pacing
mhm.
of the levels.
And so you had mentioned a map making tool that you had installed on your like first home computer to make Doom maps. So how do those old tools for making maps differ from those of today? Like most people, when it comes to Doom, especially, are using like Doom Builder, and also since you worked on Legacy of Rust, was that like a return to roots to you, or did it create any new challenges?
It actually felt um nostalgic being able to make maps for Doom again. It was it's been many years since I've made anything for Doom. So being able to make maps again was very refreshing. Very
Mm,
it was very nostalgic.
mm,
So, but as far as challenges, the only challenge that I've went through was just trying to get back into the groove of things. Just getting familiar with the tools. Just getting into my comfort zone again
mm,
when making maps. The very first map that I made was Echoes of Pain, and you can definitely tell that the the map itself was pretty it was very basic because I was still trying to just get back into that level making mindset.
mm. And what about the tools you so with this being on Kex Engine, do you have like your own Kex editor map making tool, or was Was there anything else that you used for that?
Now we pretty much just used Doom Builder to make the maps.
Okay.
Um, when when the port was in development, we were currently testing everything off of DSDA Doom, which is another source port,
Mm,
and we were just using that as a basis to make sure that the maps were compatible with the existing source ports. And then once the Kex version was more or less playable, then that's when we started moving everything over to that and continued development while testing on that port.
mm-hmm. And how did using Doom Builder differ from the older tools?
The old tools are horrendous. They take forever to just make a room. For example, death or do, you had to pretty much plot out every single individual vertex, and then you have to select two of those vertex to make a line def, and then you
Yeah.
had to manually insert side def information um, for that line def that you created, and then on top of that, you had to select every single line def and then hit insert to make a sector out of that. So the workflow was very it was a lot more time consuming. But
Tedious.
uh, yeah, and then with editors like DeepC or Doom Builder, it was just a lot more smarter in terms of um, in terms of development. You could just easily make something very quickly, test it out, see if it's fun or not, and then if it's not, then no big deal. You can just delete and start drawing out another room. So
Mm,
it was a lot more. It helped a lot for like production. You want to be able to quickly test something and see if it sticks or not, and then if not, then you have these features, these tools from Doom Builder to make it easy to make modifications or even redesign entire rooms
mm,
with with little effort.
mm. It's funny. I actually a while back watched someone stream themselves making a Doom map, but I don't know, just for the novelty of it, they did it the old way, and so like manually typing out all that stuff, and yeah, it was an okay stream to watch, but I couldn't imagine myself sitting in her spot doing all that myself.
Yeah,
Um,
I I actually been trying to get the okay from Bethesda to release the original development tools for Doom 64 because
mhm,
their level editor was exactly like Death, where you had to manually plot out everything manually, and you had to manually create a sector out of those line defs. So
yeah,
um, it was I have no idea how the original level designers for Doom 64 did it, but I just don't understand. I just could not really get used to that workflow, and
mhm.
it's amazing what those guys were able to do with with that editor.
And to me, I feel like when it comes to Doom 64, their map making skills were just on another level. The way they overcame all the limitations of the cartridge, like all they had the illusion of room over rooms with like especially TerraCore. You know that
Yeah,
one's probably one of the most impressive maps. So yeah,
yeah.
um,
The designers were all hardcore Doom fans, and I wouldn't be surprised that those room over room tricks were from them just trying so many different things,
mhm,
making maps for that game, and it was probably something that they came across by accident and decided to turn it into a feature.
yeah, yeah, just a little bit of experimentation and who knows where it leads. So see, months ago when I reached out to you to come onto this show, shortly afterwards you had posted on your social media about your your journey in the industry, how you started on Timegate, which was pretty interesting because I was researching about some questions to ask you, and then you just happened to post that. So I wanted to know what was it like being at Timegate, and how did it feel to work on your first game?
So, I originally applied for Timegate back in 2005, and they turned me down. And then I applied for them again in 2006, and they brought me in for an interview to work on Fear Extraction Point, but they still think that that I didn't have any experience, or I didn't have enough to show, if I can remember right. But um, a year like a year later, or I think later in that year, they contacted me asking if I would be interested in working on the second expansion pack. What I didn't know at the time was that right after they finished the first expansion pack, all of their level designers walked out.
Oh
So
no.
they had the contract to start on the next expansion, and they had no no level designers to to do prototyping. So
Hmm.
they kind of came to me as a last resort. And they were also like scouting for people from the guild hall, which was a game development school in
Hmm.
Dallas. They gathered a couple of graduates for level design, and they brought them on to the project as well. So when I first started, everyone else was just starting as well. Everyone was fresh out of school, um, and in fact, I was probably the only one that um, that 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 they didn't pick from the guild hall. So everyone was asking me um, what which division I was under, and I keep telling them that I didn't go to that school. So it was kind of odd, but yeah, when my boss wanted me to start making a like a test level just to get familiar with the lift tech engine,
Hmm.
he didn't think that I was gonna be able to do much. Um, but um, eventually I became senior level designer. So so yeah, after I showed him the test map, he immediately put me in charge of the expansion. Well, not in charge, but he basically made sure that I was like overseeing the overall quality of the maps.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I that project was didn't I think it lasted like 6 months, but I I think I did several maps, and I helped on two others.
Hmm.
But being able to work on something like that was really it was very motivating. It basically jumps like sparked more motivation in level design, because
Hmm.
right around that time I was already kind of getting burnt out from doom mapping, and I was gonna venture into other like making maps for other games like Doom 3, and I've
Hmm.
made several maps for that. They were extremely time consuming, but I was um, just trying out different making maps for different games and whatnot. So being able to work on something different, and especially um, a commercial project like that, it's sparked new interest in level design, and I was able to carry the project out. You know, getting it making sure that everything meets the milestones, and working with the artists on what I wanted in the levels, and so forth.
Hmm.
And and I can't remember, but I think I also helped out with like the lighting in most of the maps as well.
Hmm.
Um, and then after that, I was um, after the Fear expansion, I was assigned to lead level designer to work on a Dirty Harry game using Lift Tech. Unfortunately, the project kind of fell flat and it got canceled. And um, in addition to that, like the half of the staff were also laid off as well. But I was pretty much one of the one of the few that the studio kept because they needed someone to continue working on Section 8, which was a game that they were working on the side while we were working on the Fear expansion. They had another small team prototyping Section 8,
Hmm.
and that was when the right around that layoff. That was when the game went into pre-production, and they needed someone to start making making levels for that. So it was just me and three other guys, and just being told, "Hey, we need to make a map based on large open terrain with three or four capture points. Go at it, make it fun."
Hmm.
So it it took a lot of iterations because it was a game that well, the easy thing with the Fear expansion was that there was already a art set defined. I already knew how the game was going to play out and how the levels were going to look. So it was easy to make levels knowing how everything was going to look. But with Section 8, it was a game that was still like not finalized. So all I had to work with was just grid textures and barely functional gameplay. So it was really difficult to figure out how the map or how the game was supposed to be fun.
Hmm.
So it it was a lot of just going back and forth, seeing what works and seeing what doesn't. And every time the team would make would add like a new feature to the game, I would have to go back and make revisions to the maps to account for that. So
Hmm.
it it was um unlike the Fear expansion, I had to constantly stay on top of the maps, constantly making changes every time a part of the gameplay was completed, because
Hmm.
because I didn't know how everything was going to play out. So I had to keep making tweaks to the maps to work with that gameplay, if that makes sense.
Hmm. But at
um
least, oh, go ahead.
no, I'm sorry, what was that?
I mean, you show them that you're willing and able to adapt with that, because I can see how that might get frustrating or challenging.
Yeah,
But
multiplayer, like it was a different kind of multiplayer. I am familiar with free for all deathmatch and whatnot, but this type of multiplayer was more like tribes, and I never played that game, so
mhm,
I wasn't really familiar with with that multiplayer mindset. So it was really challenging to try doing, and making it fun. Um, so yeah, and then after Section 8, we did like a sequel to Section 8, which was more or less the same thing.
mhm,
And then that was when after that that was when Gearbox came to us asking about Aliens Colonial Marines, because they were in the middle of a project, and they were pretty much contracted to get this project, to get Aliens done. So they had to turn to another studio to help to help get it done on time. So
mhm,
that's where we came in, and the game was what they gave us was a fully functional vertical slice of the game, with one level that was complete. All the art assets was there. Basically, all we had to do was just finish the game. So
mhm,
that's essentially what we did. And we we had like 60% of the game done, and then right about that point, Gearbox shipped Borderlands 2, and then they were like, "Nah, we're taking over." And then they took over and scrapped everything that we did,
Oh
and
man.
that was it. So yeah, I I think some parts of the levels that I worked on survived, but yeah, um, most of that work didn't make it in the final game. I did contribute some rooms to the second mission of that game, but yeah. So after that, we were working on a game called Minimum, which was another multiplayer capture the point based game, kind of like Section 8.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but right about that time, that was when the studio started to go through some hard times, and eventually the studio shut down, and that game Minimum that we were working on, it got sold off. I forgot who bought it, but yeah, the game basically got bought out by someone else, and that other studio finished that game. And for a while, I was just working in software, just working on mobile apps, and then that was when Stephen Kick from Nightdive approached me asking about Strife, and
Oh yeah.
yeah, and that's pretty much that's pretty much it from there.
I had no idea. You mentioned another Lithtech game that the Dirty Harry game was that going to be an FPS?
It was going to be third person, like it was going. I
Okay.
mean, basically, it was going to be Gears of War, but with the Dirty Harry theme. And it was using the same tech for Condemned 2, and in fact,
Oh yeah.
we had the source code to Condemned 2, but I don't know what happened to it. It would have been great because that would have been a good opportunity to do a like a PC remaster, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of yeah, I'm really kicking myself in the head for it because I actually had the source code to it for a while. I just don't know what happened to it.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, the we did the vertical slice for that game, and the game was almost in a fully pre-production state, and then that was when Warner Brothers decided to just pull the plug on it, and that was it.
Mm. That's a shame. Um, so with Colonial Marines being pretty much widely known as being a commercial flop, do you have any regrets being part of that and working on it,
It
or would
was
you happily do it all over again?
it was well, it's not. I mean, it wasn't the fact that I didn't enjoy having to work on it. I was just happy that I had work
Mm.
because after the second Section 8 game, we were absolutely uncertain what we were going to do after that because we could not get um, any clients interested in funding us to work on whatever games that they want. So we were really desperate for work, and
Mm.
we were thankful that Gearbox came to us about Colonial Marines because that meant you know I can get I get to keep my job.
Yeah.
So so yeah, but yeah, I had no regrets.
Okay. And then of course, as you mentioned, you went on to, to work for Nightdive. So, what do you like most about working at Nightdive, and how does it differ from being at Timegate?
Well, I was getting burnout from just level design in general because now I mean nowadays you just block stuff out and then the artist will do like 80% of everything else.
Mm.
So it just wasn't becoming challenging for me anymore. So I was doing programming as a hobby at the time, and actually my during my first year at Timegate, that was when I was working on the very first iteration of my Doom 64 port,
Mm.
and I was just doing programming a lot as a hobby, just getting better at it and just learning up on things and whatnot. So doing something different at Night Dive was great. But at the same time, the hobbies that I was doing while I was at Timegate, it kind of saved my ass in the long run because after Timegate, nobody was hiring level designers, and
Mm.
I tried applying for a certain affinity in Austin, and they they s- they s- they asked if I worked on Alien Colonial Marines, and I said yeah, and then they were like nope, and um yeah, I just could not find work anywhere as a level designer. So I'm really grateful that that I was happy that I was doing programming as a hobby because now I can basically utilize that as a second skill
Mm.
for other jobs. I didn't have to be stuck doing level design work. I can be flexible enough to do something different. So that's where Night Dive came in, and it was a good opportunity for me to start getting really familiar with programming as full time. Well,
Mm.
during that time, I was still a contractor, but during or after Turok, that was when I went full time. I think the best part of Night Dive is working from home. I don't have to get any kind of interruptions. I don't have to fight the traffic anymore. I Oh my gosh, I absolutely hated that.
Mm.
Um, I don't have to worry about rent. I lived in an apartment while I was at Timegate, but um, and it's funny because I worked at Timegate for 7 years, and on that final year, I actually thought about buying a house.
Oh.
And right as I thought of that, that's when the layoff happened.
Mm.
So that kind of bummed me out because I had to move back in with my parents, and it felt like I was back at square one, having to
Right.
start over again. Um, but then I don't know, I kind of just quickly got really spoiled by having to work from home because now I just did not have to deal with the nonsense of rent or going through traffic and all that. So in a ways, I'm kind of thankful for that because also at the same time, my parents' health were also kind of declining. So it was kind of good that I would always at least be at home to
Mm.
just to keep an eye out on things.
Right. So, with when it comes to Night Dive, they're mostly known for the remasters or re-releases, and aside from like the complete remake of System Shock being on Unreal, so that comes into question. They're essentially a service that provides game preservation. So, uh, with when it comes to game preservation for you personally, how important is it to you?
Um, there's a lot of games now that's just being forgotten. Like y'all also got to remember that a lot. I mean, back in the day, it was still like the Wild West in the game industry. A lot of people did they did things that nobody else has done before, and a lot of work and determination went into these games. And seeing these games being forgotten is kind of well, it's kind of shitty.
Yeah.
um, so it's good that we try to restore these games for a new generation of players just to experience these games and be appreciative of just the kind of work that developers during back in the day had to do.
Mhm.
It's nothing like game development now where we already have all the tools at our disposal. back then you pretty much had to make everything on your own. So it was a lot more um, it was a lot more harsh back then,
Right.
and and yeah, it's just being able to preserve these games and the history behind them is always an importance. Um, it's always an important. So it's 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 just something that people just need to, or not need to, but it's stuff that people should be aware of
Mhm.
of these these long forgotten games.
Right. So you would say not only just as a means to give people an opportunity to play it, but also to preserve like the whole overarching design, like how people can see it, how things were done back then.
Yeah,
Is
yeah, sort of like that, and also just at least like try giving a game a second chance at things. Like
right.
some games made some like poor design choices, so
PO'd.
um yeah, without trying to, like, revamp everything, we make these little subtle changes to improve the experience of that game without having doing too much to it.
Mhm.
I know, like, in Turok, some of the levels were kinda questionable, very windy, mazy-like, and,
Mhm.
the, level designer in me said that, "No, this needs to be a little bit more, a little bit more convenient for the player." So, there's just some things I had to rearrange and, make areas, just a lot more gameplay
Streamlined.
friendly. Yeah.
You know, especially with like catacombs. There's so many hallways that just lead to nowhere.
Yeah, that I tried trimming some of that. I didn't wanna, like, completely redo it, but I did try to trim off a lot of the, excess fat in that level. So, it's still bad, unfortunately, but it could have been way worse.
Yeah, and another another good example is Treetop Village. That one I played through it again on emulation for retro achievements like last year, and I didn't remember how badly that level flowed until I experienced it all over again. So like the remaster really streamlined it and made it the pacing so much better. Treetop is like now I think one of the best levels in that game.
Just being able to extend the fog was what made that level a lot more easier to, navigate.
Mm-hmm. Um, so so you work with the Nightdive's own in-house engine, the Kex engine. What what is one thing you have learned working in Kex engine that you would wish you had learned sooner?
Better API design. There's a lot of questionable decisions that I made during, Turok and Turok 2,
Mm-hmm.
and, I really regretted it. There was also a lot of things that I just did not know about, like various VSync, issues. All of the games up until the thing all have mouse input latency issues, and if I and the solution was absolutely dumb and something that I should have known from the very beginning. But if if I could go back in time, I would that would be the first thing that I would do to make sure that that doesn't happen. So,
Mm-hmm.
I really wish I could just go back and just fix the latency on all of the past projects, but what can you do?
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure you remember an issue that I ran into with Turok 2. Being a being my main speed run, and I got a new computer that I switched over to AMD hardware, and I couldn't run that game for long without it crashing. So yeah, that's one of the
Yeah, that
thankfully
oh,
thankfully thankfully
sorry.
there was a yeah thankfully there was a driver update that allowed me to play it again. But yeah.
Yeah, I would just blame that on my, inexperience. because at because I never programmed as something as large scale as that before. So I was essentially learning as I was going.
Hmm.
But the stuff that I know now, I wish I could just take that and just update those past games,
Hmm.
especially Turok 1, because that game could really have benefited from high refresh support and better mouse aim. Um, but yeah, it would have been great if we could re-release Turok 1.
Now, what's I'm curious, what's holding you back from that? Just like time constraints and it not really being profitable to Night Dive to update the games, or what?
Well, it's because we got tons of projects on the pipeline, and we have so little people to to we're still a pretty small staff. Um,
Mm,
I mean, well, we have two teams. The first team is the first team that does that worked on the System Shock remake, and
mm,
then you have the Kex team, which is me and um 10 other
Be-
people.
Behemoth.
Yeah, including Behemoth. He's been a tremendous asset for Turok 3. A lot of the he did so much of the polish work on Turok 3, and I really wish I could have used his skill set for Turok 1.
Mm. So he came in later then.
Oh yeah, I would say he came in about, I think, Turok 3, I think.
Oh, okay. So it hasn't been that long. Um, well, so what would you say would be the most difficult project that you've worked on this thus far?
Blood. I
Um,
absolutely hate that project. If someone asked me if I wanted to work on a build engine game, I would say no. Um, for many reasons. One, there's the build engine community has a very high expectations on build engine re-releases. So a lot of just a lot of pressure is already on that. And
mm,
second, there were some licensing issues with using the build engine source code. So I was given the unfortunate task of remaking the build engine from scratch. That
yeah.
was not en I did not enjoy doing that. That was a very painful experience because I had to pretty much try to emulate all of the jank that the build engine had, and I absolutely hated it.
Mm,
Um, I'm surprised that, um I'm surprised that it didn't turn out as bad as I hoped. Of course, it's still pretty bad, but it could have been way worse, and that was just mainly due to me just carefully studying the build engine source code and just being very, very careful with reverse engineering blood because we didn't have the source code at the time,
mm,
and the source code to the alpha version was absolutely unreliable because so much has changed um, in the code base. So I basically spent majority of my time in IDA just trying to disassemble everything and trying to figure out where everything goes. And it definitely didn't help when everything was in line. That just made things way difficult to reverse engineer because I kept ending up um, reverse engineering code that I've already gathered. So I just kept coming across duplicate stuff.
mm.
Um, it was yeah, it was a very nerve wracking project, and I really hope to never have to go through that again.
It's funny you mentioned build engine because there's just a couple people in chat mentioning like 0 hour and time to kill Duke, some of the Duke games, which
Oh, those are different game engines. That's not build.
0 hours not build. I could have
Yeah,
sworn it was
I believe it's my memory is bad, but I could have sworn it was a third person game or like a 2D platformer.
It is, but let's see. There was, I want to say it was a Civi video. Civi on YouTube. He covered that game, and he mentioned build engine. So I could be wrong. He could be wrong. I don't know, but there's definitely some of the. It has some of the quirks. It's build, but just all in 3D is what it feels like. Um,
Interesting.
yes, but anyway, the next question: what keeps you motivated to work on games, whether it's designing the levels or the programming?
Both. I'm I'm very fascinated with how older games work. I like looking at the source code and seeing what solutions that the developers took to accomplish some things. Um, Power Slave, for example, I was very interested, or I was very intrigued with some of the solutions that they did to how that game worked, and
Mm,
just being able to just learn and like take these older games apart and figure out how they work. It's probably one of the best experiences that I'll have, and it's always fun just learning how they work and just looking at source code of these old games.
okay, so you're definitely more of a hands-on. Being hands-on with it is what keeps you so interested with it.
Yeah, that and like I said before, I'm always fascinated by the science behind video games, and I just like the way I just like the science behind it. I just like the way they work,
Mm.
basically.
Okay, so this is next question. I know you guys all get this so much, but if I don't ask it, somebody in my chat will, and that's do you feel that Rage Wars needs a remaster, or given how small the maps are by today's standards, would it be reasonable to assume that the game probably just needs a complete remake to accommodate?
Um, it would it would definitely be feasible to do a remaster. It's just the problem is, well, basically it just comes down to the business side of things. Will it make money?
Right.
That's the biggest problem. Um, so yeah, it really just comes down to a marketing point of view. Like, is it really that high in demand, or will we be able to
Mhm.
make back the profits versus the development costs?
But
Um,
I'd.
it it was like I mean, it is a very simple and small game.
Mhm.
So I was thinking it would just be better as like a expansion or an add-on for Turok 3,
Mhm.
um but it just really comes down to, do we have do we have the do we have the people for it? Because we have like 5 or 6 projects going on right now, and out of the 10 people that we have, we're all scattered across all of those projects.
Mhm.
So we're kind of pretty much, things are pretty thin, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Um, I mean, I would say as far as marketing concern is just look at the stream. What Miss Slaughter does over there on the stream. She has those community nights, and those are always popping off. So there's definitely an interest for the arena shooters and deathmatch. I mean, I've even hosted some games here in my stream, like with the Perfect Dark. Um, it's a true PC port, and they just got like network play working, and we did some deathmatch that like back during Christmas, and so yeah, there's definitely still some interest for a game like Rage Wars. It's just nobody's really leaning into them. Um, but anyway, let's to the next question. And this is probably going to come back to something on build engine, but maybe you have feel differently. What is one game you hope to never touch and give it the remastered treatment?
Duke 3D.
Well, they have the let's I always call it the Randy version, the World Tour. Yeah, it they essentially remastered themselves and added a whole new episode, which is like kind of questionable. But as far as you're concerned, it's just what just build engine all over again. You wouldn't want to touch.
Yep, pretty much.
Okay, that's fair. Um, so this is just purely out of curiosity because you have it posted on your profile on X that it says you're a cooking and baking enthusiast. So why don't you tell us a bit about that?
Well, um, when you're constantly working 12 hours a day programming or doing level design, you get burnt out pretty easily. And that was one of those times when I was getting really burnt out. And I, going back, I kind of reminisce um, when my well, when my mom was still around, when she would bake cookies for for Thanksgiving and Christmas and all that, and how much I missed that. So
Mm,
I wanted to figure out how to how to do that because you know being stupid me, I never asked her how to how do how do you do it. So I
mm,
kind of had to figure out on my own. So um, once I started making some macadamia cookies on my own, I kind of enjoyed it. So I started looking up some recipes on doing other things, and I started to learn how to do started to learn how to make chicken fried rice. I started to learn how to make pizza from scratch. I started to learn all sorts of things, and it's kind of a way for me to not wind down, but kind of um, take my mind off of work,
mm,
because it, because things just been getting very very monotonous lately. So
yeah.
it kind of drives me off the deep end sometimes because of how repetitive that it is for me. So I've been doing some different things as a way to you know um what was I going to say? It's just as a way to just to mix things up.
Mm,
And aside from cooking and baking, I've been also doing some gardening as well.
oh yeah.
I actually have a huge bed of bell peppers growing, and
Mm,
I'm really happy with how those are turning out. So yeah, I've been doing a lot more different things lately than what I used to now. I'm trying to be um, more. Uh, I'm I'm still working on it, but trying to be more outgoing now because um, since Time Gate, I've been very antisocial, just staying away from everyone and just wanting to just stay just stay home and be alone. But um, I'm I'm trying to change some things up. I'm trying to improve on things, and just trying to change my day-to-day routines. So
mm.
so yeah, that's the reasons why I'm now doing cooking and gardening and all that.
It's like someone in chat who had said that work life balance is very important, and I can definitely relate to you there. Being here at home all the time, sitting in front of my computer, it is like being a Texan. We love our barbecue, and I've taken a huge interest in grilling outdoors. I just go out in the backyard and fire that thing up, and it's very therapeutic for me. So I definitely Yeah, I can understand where you're coming from with that.
Yeah, it's also kind of difficult because even when I was a kid, I would always I never really went outside even as a kid because I think it was mostly because of the growing up conditions because we growing up we didn't really live in a house. It was more like a garage that my grandfather fixed up to be like a house. So I
Mm,
never really had like a room of my own. I have always shared the same bedroom with me and my parents for the longest time. So I kind of got into that routine where I'm always staying quiet and just keeping things to myself.
mm.
So that's kind of why I'm always, kind of like I'm always like a hermit now because of that. But but of course, now, I'm living in an actual house now, but it's just I'm just trying to change up on some things and you know, reaching out to new people. I'm trying to make new friends and um and hopefully, uh you know, hopefully I don't want to jinx it, but hopefully eventually meet someone, meet someone special as well. So,
Mhm.
I'm trying to improve on those things and not trying to be a antisocial hermit all the time because, really life is pretty short.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like you just finished high school, and then the next thing you know, you're you're approaching in your mid 40s. So it can really creep up on you.
Yeah, like we were talking about just before the stream, before the interview, how the older you get, the faster time seems to just slip by.
Yep.
Uh, so one more follow up to that previous question. What would you say is the messier workplace? Is it your kitchen or your office?
Office. I have Ethernet cables everywhere. In fact,
um,
I don't even want to touch one of my routers because of how that one's configured to the PlayStation network,
mhm.
and it's all very finicky in terms of how the VPN and is set up on that and all that. So I kind of just leave all of the cables where they are.
So being at doing a lot for Night Dive, do you still find time for gaming or not so much?
um, Not so much. Since I'm out in the middle of nowhere, out in the country. I only have DSL, so it's not really good for online games and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
I have been looking into Starlink though, but man, it's expensive.
Mm-hmm. Um, what would you say? Back when you had what little time you got for gaming, or back before you were with Night Dive, what would you say is your proudest gaming achievement?
Oh gosh, uh, truth be told, my wait a minute, gaming achievement. Like, what do you mean?
Well, like the guest I had, the creator of Head On, his was he beat Hexen entirely on his own without using a guide back when he was a kid. Something I personally I find
Oh,
find that pretty impressive because, well, I mean it's Hexen.
actually, now that you mention it, yeah. When I was 5, me and my dad beat Contra without the lives cheat code.
Oh yeah, the A B start
Yep.
nonsense. Yeah, yeah, that's a tough game for sure. And conversely, what would you say is your most embarrassing gaming moment that you're willing to share?
I don't think I do. Yeah, I don't. I, to be honest, I don't think I do have one. Not that I remember.
Okay, fair enough. And then, so coming up on our last question, I know some people have already been asking questions, but I might have to scroll up and chat. So, um, while we answer this one, chat, if you've got any questions for Kaiser, go ahead and get those ready. Um, but yeah, everyone knows you as Samuel Villarreal in the credits of Nightdive games, but you go by Kaiser, and what why did you choose that name? Does it have any significant meaning to you?
Um, well, back in the day, I used to go by the nickname Deaf Man, and I used to get flacked on a lot when I used to post on Quake 3 World on the forums over there, and I just got tired of it and said, you know what, just change my name, and then I picked a random name, and there you have it.
And it just
That
stuck
name
with you,
stuck.
yeah.
Yep, and then the the name stuck. It stuck with me.
Okay. Um. Anyway, so yeah, moving on to chat questions. If you guys would be able to remaster Unreal, would you guys do it in Kex or use Unreal Engine 5?
Uh, Inkex, assuming if Epic is even interested, because I think we actually went to them about this bit before and we got turned down.
Mm-hmm. I believe it's on available on GOG, Good Old Games now. With they just turned it over to some third party and let them handle like the online connectivity and all that. Yeah, they just essentially try to bury that franchise. So we have Beef Fans asking croissants or crescent rolls.
Croissants.
Uh, let's see. Bundle, we already went over that right at the start of the interview. If you want to watch the beginning of the stream, basically things have been going pretty well and recovery's coming along. Sventus asks, if you can answer, what does tracking down the license and getting permission to remaster old games look like?
Oh, I'm sorry. What was the oh, so that's more of a Stephen Kick question, but the gist of it is basically tracking down potential potential IP owners on LinkedIn and just reaching out to them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Uh, Zoya Hugh asks, what is your favorite Doom 64 level?
Bloodkeep.
Any particular reason?
Um, it's very complex in architecture, and it's very um, um, a lot of outdoor sections, and it
Mm-hmm.
feels like you're navigating like a small outdoor section rather than rather than going through, hallway to hallway.
Right. I think it's aesthetically it's one of the more interesting levels.
It's a really cool layout.
Let's see. Morpher's got a long one here. A repost. In 2023, some of us rediscovered Kaiser's old project called Merciless Extermination for Doom 64 from 2012. Looks like some of the levels became lost levels. How did Merciless Extermination change for the lost levels? Are there some unreleased levels from this project that one day might see the light?
Only the tech level was reused for the lost levels. Everything else was original.
Okay. Let's see. Sventus asks, "Do you have any night dive, or do you or night dive internally express any interest in making an original IP?"
Um, actually, we have. We kind of um throw around the idea of a original game, but nothing really has been set in stone yet.
Okay. Another question just popped up from a morpher. Since you have walked the what? Since you have walked the self-taught programmer walk, do you have any recommendations for self-taught programmers to increase their capabilities in programming?
Just find something that they want to do. Like for me, for example, I wanted to just play Doom 64 on PC, but I needed to figure out all of the differences that game had, and I just basically wanted to reprogram all of the new features. So it it's a very difficult question to answer because it can vary for every person. I would just say find a reason why you want to do programming in the first place. Like if there's something that you want to do, then do it. Just start off on that, and eventually you'll start learning new things along the way. Like if there's something you don't know how to do, look up on it, research. Um, just Google it, find an answer to it, and then just make note of it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, Kaiser, I wanted to thank you for coming on for this show. I know this is still pretty new, and I get nervous at time trying to find my words, but I'm definitely improving a lot and gaining more confidence as the more I do this. So, um, glad to have you on, and as always, I enjoy looking forward to every project that Nightdive is working on, and yeah, I think you guys are really doing some important work. And yeah. Oh, by the way, chat, Nightdive is hiring for a couple of positions. They need an artist, and if you can remind me, what was the other one?
There's a yeah, we had an opening for an artist, or no, not an artist. We have an opening for a game designer, like an
Okay,
actual game design.
okay. And they posted that on their social. If I can probably see if I can pull that up on Twitter real quick. Yeah, there was a post about it just the other day, and I even asked you about it. Uh, Gosh, where was it? Yeah, there you go. You're quick. Thank you, Shadow. Yeah, if anyone happens to fill one of those roles and would be interested, there you go. But yeah, I think this is going to wrap up the segment here. We'll let you get back to doing what you do. And yeah, again, I really appreciate you coming on. And yeah, I think we'll turn it over to some. I'm going to play some Turok 2 here for the rest of the stream. And yeah, well, we will catch you later.
Thanks for having me.
All right, see you.